As the second impeachment of President Trump moves forward here, there's a lot of questions about the timeline with the president set to leave office next week.
Yes, we want to bring in our constitutional law expert. We have Robert Tsai from the Boston University School of Law with us. And Robert, thank you for being here. The House raced through this impeachment debate today as President Trump only has days now left in office. I want to ask you, how is this fast-tracked process being handled, in your opinion, in your view?
I think they're doing the right thing. They're facing an unprecedented situation where a sitting president has refused to accept the results of the election in which he lost, and where that president has whipped up his followers and engaged in what I call alternative world building. And this has not ceased up until this final moment where even though he couldn't get the judges to throw out the election results, and he couldn't get the state officials to throw out the election results, he finally gives this inflammatory speech and sort of points this mob up at the Capitol. And so, I think that there's not really much that the House needed to have done in the first place in terms of holding hearings, and all the facts are fairly public. And based on what they know, they believe that there's enough to impeach this president. So I think that in light of what we've got, in light of the threat that they are feeling, and all the things that go into dealing with the situation now when people are paying attention to it, I think it makes sense to work as rapidly as they've been working.
Okay, let's talk about this. If there is a Senate conviction after Trump leaves office, would that block him from seeking office again? And will that be, or could that possibly be open to legal challenges?
That's a great question. That's one of the reasons I think that the House is pushing impeachment as opposed to, say, censure. Censure, it seems like there would be quite a lot of support on both sides of the aisle to pass sort of on a bipartisan basis a resolution that condemned what the president did, but that wouldn't have the effect of removing him from office if you thought he was a continuing threat at the moment, nor would it do what impeachment could do, which is to prevent him from holding public office again. So yes, most academics who have looked at this question believe that even when Biden takes over, the Senate could still conduct a trial, still could convict the president if they reach that threshold.
Okay, let's talk about this. Do you think there will be a push to have that Senate trial take place earlier while the president is still in office? And if so, what do you think that would take?
Well, that would take cooperation from the other side. So the Senate is still run by Senator Mitch McConnell. It looks like Chuck Schumer had tried to see if the other side would be willing to consent to reconvening the Senate on an emergency basis, returning as quickly as Friday. But it looks like Senator McConnell has rebuffed that overture. So we're not going to see action, I think, in the Senate certainly on Friday. And we're going to kind of have, we're going to have to keep an eye on this. It may not really get underway until after the Democrats take over and the new senators, for example, from Georgia are sworn in. So that's something that could delay things. But it looks like President-elect Biden is intent on making sure that the beginning of his tenure gets off on the right foot. And so there are certainly some conversations taking place to perhaps hold the trial on part of the day and make sure that his business gets done on the rest of the day.
And the prospect that President Trump could pardon Capitol insurrectionists and possibly himself has concerned some House members here. Can impeachment prevent that from happening?
Yes, it can. That's another, I think, a factor that is an important one that's going into this calculation. His own lawyers have told him that he now faces legal exposure for having potentially incited the crowd and to do what they did. It's possible that if he were charged when he left office, he could beat that charge, but that risk is one he has to seriously think about now. And there's a lot that we also don't know about how this mob was ready to do what they did, how they got so deep, how they knew where to find people. And it could be that we find out more information about advanced planning and perhaps help that some of the insurrectionists got from others who are in positions of authority. So if that were to happen, that would be exposure that went higher and more deeply. And I think that there is some possibility that if that involved any of his allies, then they would be potentially asking for a pardon. So I think impeachment would take that off the table. There's another possibility that some people have been talking about, which is trying to use the 14th Amendment's Section 3, which was used against those who took an oath to the United States Constitution, but then fought for the Confederacy. And there's been some conversation that that might be a faster way of doing some of the things that the House leaders might want to accomplish. You might be able to disqualify him and others from holding a future public office that way. And it would only require a majority vote rather than the 2/3 threshold that you need to meet for impeachment. So some things that are kind of in the mix. It looks like right now, impeachment is the thing that they're forced to think about in the House. But those are some other possibilities.
Robert Tsai from the Boston University School of Law. Thank you so much, Robert.
All right, we have